Hello everyone, this is Thomas Kinkade. Welcome to my studio. You know, people ask me where I get my ideas for my paintings, and a lot of times it happens right here as I'm sitting around daydreaming about the kind of romantic and peaceful places that I love to paint. Of course, recently I had a chance to take a look at a different kind of inspiration, an inspiration based on speed, energy, and a passion for winning. The Daytona 500 really began as an invitational meet. In fact, on February 2nd, 1959, the Daytona International Speedway hosted the first Daytona 500. Now, the finish of the race also went into the history books because the finish was too close to call. But Johnny Beauchamp went to victory lane and savored the celebration, although the results were posted as unofficial. And believe it or not, 3 days later, after studying the photographs, the officials declared Lee Petty the winner. Well, 50 years later, the Daytona 500 is NASCAR's biggest, richest, and most prestigious race. In fact, it's known as the Great American Race. The 2008 winner was Ryan Newman, who passed Tony Stewart on the very last lap to take the checkered flag. Well, my painting, NASCAR Thunder, celebrates the 50th running of the Daytona 500, and it's my personal tribute to American motorsports. Now, you may ask, what does a painter who loves to work outdoors have in common with race car drivers? I'll tell you, very simply put, it's a passion for speed. Of course, driving into the Daytona 500 is like entering a great festival. There's a huge camping area that's full to overflowing with RVs. My brother Pat was busy writing a blog about the entire adventure that was being posted in real time. I was allowed to wander around the track and pretty much set up and sketch anywhere I wanted. There's nothing more thrilling than sketching away as a race car comes zooming by at almost 200 miles an hour. I was sketching during the time trials and the rehearsal for the opening ceremonies. It was wonderful to watch all the preparations. There were people with flags and music playing. It was a real celebration. The media interviews were going on all day long, Speed Channel, Sirius Radio. Right before the race began, there's a tradition of signing your name on the finish line. And of course, I couldn't resist taking part. I got out my black marker and signed my name right there. During the actual day of the race, the easel came out and I was setting up right in the perfect vantage point, and I set to work. I was swinging the brushes so fast at one point that paint seemed to be flying everywhere. As I worked, a crowd of people gathered, and of course, this lended even more inspiration to the painting. When I worked, I tried to capture the color, but also a sense of the pageantry. There's something about the moment in history. Now, that painting served as a study along with some other sketches that I did on location. Those studies enabled me to recreate the Daytona 500 right there in my studio. Now, all that preparation was just a starting point for what you see beside me, the final painting. I tried to capture something that couldn't be captured in just a photograph. As a matter of fact, there wasn't a perfect moment where the fireworks were going off, the planes were flying overhead, and the starting flag was being dropped. But leave it to an artist's imagination to bring those various pieces together into one celebration of history. I really do think it is a piece of history that the Daytona 500 has made it to 50 years. It's become more than a race, it's become an American tradition. Richard Petty waved the green starting flag, and of course we can see him there, leaning over the track. The cars are shown in the exact order of the starting positions. On the big board in the distance, we see the same numbers, a careful lineup of each of the cars and its starting position. Over in pit row, we see the parade of history. These are the great cars from the past, each one with its own story to tell of the great traditions of the Daytona 500. The fireworks are going off overhead, and in the distance we see planes soaring with banners. Huge banners were constantly in motion above the track. We can see one with a giant American flag unfurled. The famous Goodyear blimp soars overhead. We can see it in the distance as the Thunderbirds go roaring past. I tried to include in the crowd many suggestions of the history of this race. We see a grandfather with his vintage jacket denoting the very first race. On his shoulders is his grandson wearing the commemorative 50th anniversary jacket. We see race fans with the numbers of their favorite drivers proudly adorned on their backs. Everywhere you look, you see people with headgear. This is not just people listening to the radio, this is the actual broadcast of the race. It's amazing to think how many people come to this racing event. In the stadium, as well as in the infield of the racetrack, there's probably enough people to fill a mid-size American city. In the crowd, you saw all kinds of different colors being worn. Again, that connected to all the different drivers. Look how colorful the cars are, each color denoting a different racing team and a different sponsorship group. The clouds were racing overhead, swirling in and out, and you could see patches of light below on the racetrack. I was amazed at the accuracy and automation of the pit road. We would see cars come roaring in and out of the pits, and people would make their pit stop so quickly it almost seemed like a precision drill team at work. At the very top of the stadium, you saw the press suites and the luxury boxes. This was where people were actually positioned to film the race and to have international coverage of all the events of the day. In the middle of the track, we have the beautiful Daytona 500 50-year commemorative logo. This was carefully applied to the grass itself, beautiful colors to suggest the pageantry of the day. In the left-hand corner of the painting, we see the actual commemorative hat that denoted the 50th anniversary. I actually wore this very hat, and I used it as a model for my painting. If you look over the shoulders of the bystanders, you can see the cars thundering towards you. This is truly one of the most thrilling moments in sport. There's nothing like the sound and the feel of the stands as the cars go racing by. Couple that with the Thunderbirds flying overhead and fireworks exploding all around, and you have a truly unforgettable moment. You know, it's not often that an artist gets a chance to capture history on canvas. And yet, when I was there watching the 50th running of the Daytona 500, it was truly as though I was watching history being made. Perhaps this painting will remind NASCAR fans everywhere of that magic moment in motorsport. That moment when history came alive at the 50th running of the Daytona 500. You know, I know there are millions of NASCAR fans out there, and I hope this painting will bring joy and a bit of history into your home. This is Thomas Kinkade saying thank you for sharing the light.